Chefs humiliated the new kitchen helper. What happened next shocked everyone. Emma Thompson arrived at the most respected restaurant in New York City, carrying only a worn-out backpack and a secret she had kept for 15 years. Her brown eyes trembled with nervousness as she walked through the back door, but there was a determination on her face that few noticed. The two head chefs, Michael Roberts and Tyler Williams, greeted her with mocking smiles. Before she could even introduce herself properly, Tyler threw flour on her new apron, and Michael pointed to a towering pile of dirty dishes. "Newbies always start by washing dishes," said Michael, crossing his arms. "And if you can't handle it, you can leave today." Emma swallowed hard and walked to the sink. Her hands shook, but not from fear. It was a much deeper emotion she had struggled to control for years. When the head chef, Richard Harrison, briefly appeared in the kitchen, he paused for a moment when he saw her. His eyes narrowed, as if trying to remember something, before he coldly turned his back and left without a word. During her first day, Emma worked in silence. She washed dishes, wiped counters, and organized ingredients. The other staff watched her curiously, but Michael and Tyler seemed determined to make her life difficult. They threw potato peels on the floor where she had just cleaned and made snide remarks about her simple clothes and worn-out shoes. "Bet she's never seen a professional kitchen in her life," Tyler muttered to Michael loud enough for her to hear. "Probably lied on her resume," Michael replied, laughing. "Look at her hands. She's never held a real knife." Emma clenched her fists but kept working. There was something about that place that made her want to stay, even if she was treated that way. Every time Richard appeared, her heart raced, but he always ignored her completely. On the second day, during the busy lunch rush, the two chefs planned something even worse. Michael deliberately bumped Emma's arm as she carried a tray with 12 clean plates. The sound of shattering dishes echoed through the entire kitchen, making everyone stop what they were doing. "What bad luck," Tyler said, feigning sympathy. "Now you'll have to clean all that up, and it's coming out of your paycheck." Emma knelt on the floor, gathering the shards with her bare hands. A silent tear rolled down her face, but she made no sound. Tyler, seeing she wouldn't react, accidentally stepped on her hand, making her stifle a whimper of pain. It was then that Eleanor Gibson, a VIP customer of the restaurant for over 20 years, walked into the kitchen looking for Richard. The 70-year-old woman witnessed the entire scene, her face twisting in outrage. "What kind of disrespect is this?" Eleanor shouted, making everyone turn. "Where is the owner of this establishment?" The manager, Daniel Wilson, came running, trying to calm the situation. Eleanor was one of the restaurant's most important clients, known for her influence in New York society. "Mrs. Gibson, please, let's talk in the office." "I'm not leaving until this is resolved," she interrupted, pointing at Emma. "This young woman is being humiliated in front of everyone, and I demand she be promoted to assistant chef immediately. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. Michael and Tyler tried to protest, saying Emma barely knew how to peel potatoes. Eleanor wouldn't accept excuses and insisted they test the young woman's skills on the spot. With trembling hands, Emma picked up a knife and began chopping onions, carrots, and celery. To everyone's surprise, her movements were precise and quick, cutting everything into perfect cubes at an impressive speed. Richard, who had been called by the noise, stood frozen in the kitchen doorway watching. When he saw Emma's knife technique, his face visibly paled. That way of cutting, that posture, that delicacy in her movements was exactly like someone he had known very well years ago. "Where did you learn to cut like that?" Richard asked, stepping closer for the first time. Emma looked up at him, and for a moment it seemed she might say something important. But then she lowered her head again. "My mother taught me," she replied softly. Richard stood motionless for a few seconds, as if those words held special meaning. Then, abruptly, he ordered everyone back to work and left the kitchen without another word. That night, when the restaurant closed and Emma thought she was alone cleaning her workstation, Tyler cornered her in the ingredient storage. His face was twisted with anger after being humiliated in front of Mrs. Eleanor. "Listen here. "I'm going to figure out what your game is," he said, blocking the exit. "No one shows up out of nowhere cutting like a professional chef." Emma tried to push past him, but Tyler grabbed her arm tightly. In the struggle to break free, a chain she wore around her neck snapped, and an old locket fell to the floor. Tyler snatched it before she could reach it. "What's this?" he asked, opening the locket. Inside was a yellowed photo of Richard, much younger, embracing a beautiful woman with brown hair and eyes just like Emma's. Tyler's eyes widened. "Who is this woman? And why do you have a photo of Chef Richard?" Emma tried to snatch the locket back, but he stepped away. "Please give it back," she begged, tears in her eyes. "It's the only memory I have of my mother." Tyler studied the photo more closely, then looked at Emma. The resemblance was undeniable. "Wait a minute. You're..." Emma ran out of the storage room, leaving Tyler alone with the locket. He stood there processing what he had discovered. If his suspicions were right, Emma wasn't just a kitchen assistant. She had a much deeper connection to Richard than anyone imagined. The next day, Emma arrived earlier than usual, hoping to find her locket. To her surprise, it was on her workstation, but Tyler was there waiting for her. "We need to talk," he said, his tone more serious than mocking. "I have nothing to say to you," Emma replied, grabbing the locket and putting it back around her neck. "That woman in the photo is your mother, isn't she? And Chef Richard." "I don't know what you're talking about," Emma interrupted, but her voice trembled. "You know Richard from before. That's why you cut like him. That's why you have this photo. What's your real connection to the chef?" Emma tried to deny it, but her tears gave her away. Tyler, realizing he had uncovered something big, decided to watch more closely in the coming days. He noticed how Richard looked at Emma when he thought no one was watching, and how she always lowered her head when he approached. Over the next week, the tension in the kitchen grew steadily. The other staff began to sense something was off. Martha Sullivan, the 55-year-old sous chef who had worked at the restaurant for 15 years, remarked to others that Emma reminded her of someone, but she couldn't place who. "There's something strange about that girl," Martha said to Jason, the manager. "The way she moves in the kitchen, how she seasons things, it's like she already knows everything instinctively." The tension exploded the following Friday. During dinner, Emma was helping season an important sauce when she accidentally spilled too much salt. She tried to fix it, but the flavor was ruined. Richard, who was supervising, tasted the sauce, and his reaction was unexpected. Instead of yelling or scolding her, his eyes filled with tears. He stood there, spoon in hand, as if reliving a painful memory. "This mistake," he murmured, almost to himself. "Only one person I knew used to season it like this." Everyone in the kitchen stopped to watch. Richard had never shown emotion like that before. Emma, noticing his reaction, rushed to the ladies' room where she broke down in tears. Martha, concerned, followed her. She found the young woman crying and clutching a yellowed letter she had pulled from inside her uniform. "Emma, what's going on?" Martha asked, sitting beside her. "You've known Chef Richard from before, haven't you?" Emma looked at the older woman, who had always been kind to her, and felt she couldn't keep the secret any longer. "I shouldn't be here," Emma sobbed. "I promised my mother I'd never look for him." "Who is he to you?" Martha asked gently. Emma handed the letter to Martha, who immediately recognized the handwriting. It was from Olivia Thompson, Richard's ex-wife, who had worked at the restaurant 15 years ago. Martha had known them both back then and carried painful memories of their messy divorce. The letter read, "My dear Emma, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone and you're alone in the world. Your father is a good man, but our separation was necessary to protect you. Never seek him out, please. Some secrets are too heavy to reveal. With all my love, Olivia." "Oh my God," Martha whispered. "You're Richard's daughter. I remember Olivia being pregnant, but then she disappeared, and Richard never spoke of it again." "My mother fell ill last month," Emma explained between sobs. "Before she passed, she told me everything. She said she lied to him, told him she'd lost the baby. But she was protecting me from something. She just never said what." Martha hugged the young woman, feeling the weight of the revelation. She remembered that time well. Richard had been devastated when Olivia disappeared, and for months he'd worked in the kitchen like a ghost. "Why did you come to work here then?" Martha asked. Because I needed to know him. I needed to understand why my mother was so afraid. And because... Emma hesitated. Because she said he had the right to know the truth before it was too late. What did she mean by that? I don't know. She was very weak at the end, saying confusing things. Martha promised to keep the secret, but advised Emma to think carefully before revealing the truth to Richard. Some wounds, even after 15 years, could still be very painful. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. In the days that followed, Richard began observing Emma more closely. Small details that had once gone unnoticed now caught his attention. The way she held a knife, how she seasoned dishes, how she organized ingredients. Everything reminded him of Olivia in a way that unsettled him. During an important dinner the following Tuesday, with food critics in attendance, the unthinkable happened. Richard's signature dish, a special salmon that was his trademark, burned due to Michael's carelessness. The chef panicked. There was no time to make another. Emma, who had been watching everything, hesitantly stepped forward. "Chef Richard," she said softly. "I know a recipe that could substitute. It's a salmon with passion fruit and herb sauce that's ready in 15 minutes. Richard looked at her with desperation and confusion. "How could you know something like that? You're just an assistant. Please, trust me, I know I can do it." With time running out and the critics waiting, Richard had no choice. He let Emma take over preparing the dish, but watched her every move. To his shock, she was making the exact same dish he had created with Olivia 15 years ago, during their honeymoon, a recipe never served at the restaurant and known only to the two of them. "How do you know this recipe?" Richard asked, his voice choked. Emma stopped what she was doing, her hands trembling over the pan. "My mother taught me," she replied, unable to look at him. "What was your mother's name?" Before Emma could answer, Tyler appeared behind them. He had spent the last few days investigating and uncovered things that changed everything. "Chef Richard," Tyler said in a serious tone he had never used before, "I need to speak with you. It's about Emma." Richard turned, annoyed by the interruption. "Not now, Tyler. We have critics waiting. It's about the daughter you thought you lost 15 years ago." The silence in the kitchen was deafening. Richard paled, his eyes darting from Tyler to Emma, who had slowly turned to face him. "What are you talking about?" Richard whispered. Tyler showed a birth certificate he had managed to obtain. Emma Thompson, born March 15, 2009. Mother, Olivia Thompson. Father, not listed, but I also found your marriage certificate to Olivia, and the dates match. Richard had to brace himself against the counter to keep from falling. His hands shook as he looked at Emma, truly seeing her for the first time. Olivia's brown eyes, her delicate nose, the way she bit her lip when nervous. "Olivia told me she lost the baby," he murmured. "She said there was nothing left to keep her and left." "She lied to protect me," Emma said, finally finding the courage to speak. "But I don't know from what." The salmon dish was ready, but no one cared about the critics anymore. Richard stepped toward Emma slowly, as if she might disappear if he moved too fast. "Why did you come here? Why now?" "Because my mother made me promise before she passed that I would come and tell you the truth. She said you had the right to know, and that something dangerous was about to happen." "Dangerous? What did she mean?" Before Emma could answer, a familiar voice echoed through the kitchen. What a touching family reunion. Everyone turned to see Victoria Blackwell, Richard's former business partner and sister-in-law, standing at the kitchen entrance. The 50-year-old woman wore a cold smile, her eyes gleaming with malice. "Victoria," Richard said, instinctively stepping in front of Emma. "What are you doing here?" "I came to celebrate the family's return," she replied sarcastically. 15 years waiting for this moment. Richard and Victoria had once been partners, but she had tried to steal the restaurant's exclusive recipes to start her own business. The scandal had nearly ruined Richard's reputation, and only through great effort had he recovered. "It was you," Richard whispered, the pieces falling into place. "You threatened Olivia. That's why she ran. Victoria laughed, a chilling sound that made everyone in the kitchen shiver. Olivia was a foolish romantic. She thought she could stop me from taking what was rightfully mine. But when she found out she was pregnant, she was terrified of what I might do to an innocent child. "What kind of threats did you make?" Emma asked, stepping beside her father. "Nothing that a civilized conversation can't solve now," said Victoria, pulling some papers from her bag. "Look, I have contracts here that prove half of this restaurant's recipes legally belong to me, including the one you just prepared together." Richard looked at the papers, his face growing even paler. "These documents are fake. I never signed this." "Maybe not, but proving that in court will take years. And in the meantime, I can make your lives hell. Especially young Emma, who technically shouldn't even be working here without proven experience." Emma felt anger rising inside her, a determination she didn't know she had. "I'm not afraid of you," she said, staring at Victoria. "My mother might have been, but I'm not." "How brave," Victoria laughed. "But bravery doesn't pay lawyers, dear." It was then that Martha stepped forward, carrying an old box. "Actually, it does," she said, placing the box on the counter. "Olivia left this with me before she disappeared. She said if anything ever happened, I should give it to Richard." Inside the box were secretly recorded audio tapes, original documents, and photographs showing Victoria trying to steal recipes and threatening not only Olivia, but other restaurant staff. "Olivia knew you'd come back one day," Martha told Victoria. "She spent months gathering evidence against you before she vanished." Victoria tried to grab the box, but Richard stopped her. "Get out now before I call the authorities," he said, his voice firm for the first time in years. "This isn't over," Victoria threatened, backing toward the exit. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." "We know exactly what you're capable of," Emma replied, "and we won't let you intimidate us like you did my mother." After Victoria left, the restaurant fell silent. The critics had gone without tasting the main dish, but no one cared. Richard turned to Emma, his eyes filled with unshed tears. "You really are my daughter," he said, not as a question but as a painful acceptance of reality. "Yes," Emma answered, "and no matter how hard my mother tried to keep me away, I always knew I'd come looking for you one day." Richard hesitated, then, for the first time in 15 years, embraced his daughter. The hug was timid at first, but quickly grew desperate, as if they were trying to reclaim all the lost years. "Forgive your mother," Richard whispered. "She did what she thought was best to protect you." "I know," Emma replied, "and now we can protect each other." Michael and Tyler, who had watched everything in silence, approached with bowed heads. "Chef," Michael said, "we didn't know. We're sorry for how we treated her." "Forgiveness isn't mine to give," Richard answered, looking at Emma. Emma studied the two men who had made her first days so difficult. She saw genuine regret on their faces. "We all make mistakes," she said finally. "What matters is learning from them." Tyler stepped closer. "Emma, I was wrong about you from day one. If you want, I'd like to teach you everything I know about professional cooking." "Me too," Michael added. "You have natural talent, you just need technique." In the weeks that followed, the restaurant's dynamic changed completely. Richard began teaching Emma personally, sharing not just cooking techniques, but stories about Olivia and the restaurant's early days. "Your mother had a special gift for desserts," he told her one afternoon as they prepared a chocolate cake together. "She said sweets were the most honest way to express love." Emma smiled, stirring the batter with the same care she'd seen Richard use. "She taught me many recipes but never told me where they came from. Now I understand. She wanted you to have your own identity, not just be a shadow of our past." As the days passed, Emma grew more confident in the kitchen. Her technique improved quickly, and soon she was creating her own dishes, combining what she'd learned from Olivia with the new lessons from Richard. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now continuing. A month after the revelation, Mrs. Eleanor returned to the restaurant. She'd heard rumors about what happened and wanted to see for herself how Emma was doing. "Darling," she said, sitting at a special table, "I hear you're the new sensation in the kitchen?" Emma, now wearing a junior chef's uniform, smiled shyly. "I'm still learning, Mrs. Eleanor. but now I have the best teachers. And most importantly, you have a family, the older woman added, glancing at Richard as he approached the table. Richard sat beside Emma, something that would have been unthinkable weeks earlier. Mrs. Eleanor, thank you for standing up for Emma that first day. If it weren't for you... I just saw a young woman being wronged, she interrupted, but fate did the rest. That evening, Richard had an idea. He decided to create a special menu in honor of Olivia, using all the recipes she'd left behind, the ones Emma knew by heart. It would be a way to honor the woman who'd sacrificed so much to protect her daughter. Let's call it Olivia's menu, he suggested to Emma. Each dish will tell a part of our story. Emma was moved by the idea. Can I include some recipes she created in recent years? She never stopped cooking, you know. Of course, this menu will be about her entire journey, not just the time she spent here. On the day of Olivia's menu launch, the restaurant was packed. Food critics, longtime customers, and even other chefs from the city came to celebrate the event. Richard and Emma worked side by side, preparing each dish with special love and care. The first course was a leafy salad with passion fruit dressing, something Olivia had made during her early days with Richard. The second was a shrimp risotto she'd invented while pregnant, and so on, each dish telling a part of their story of love, separation, and reunion. When it was time for dessert, Emma took the lead. It was a chocolate cake with berry filling, the last recipe Olivia had taught her daughter. This dessert, Emma announced to the guests, with Richard beside her, represents hope. My mother taught me that no matter how bitter life gets, we can always add a little sweetness. The applause was thunderous. But the most emotional moment came when Emma and Richard cut the cake together. Father and daughter finally united after so long apart. Victoria, who had tried multiple times in recent weeks to cause legal trouble, finally gave up when the documents Olivia left proved irrefutable in court. She was forced to pay compensation for all the harm she'd caused over the years. Justice has finally been served, Martha remarked, seeing the news in the local paper. My mother always said the truth comes when we least expect it, Emma replied. It just needed time. 6 months later, Emma had officially become a junior chef. Michael and Tyler, who had initially humiliated her, were now her biggest supporters and friends. They'd learned that judging people by appearances or background was a grave mistake. Remember when we threw flour at you? Michael asked one day as they prepared dinner. I remember, Emma smiled, but I also remember you apologized and changed. We were idiots, Tyler added. We used to think experience was just about time served, not real talent. And now you know talent comes from the heart, not a diploma, said Emma, seasoning a sauce. Richard, watching the conversation from afar, smiled. Seeing his daughter respected and admired by those who had once looked down on her was one of the greatest joys of his life. That night, after the restaurant closed, Richard and Emma stayed alone in the kitchen. It was a ritual they had developed, talking about the day and planning new dishes. Dad, said Emma, using the word that still felt new on her lips. Do you think Mom would be proud? Richard looked at his daughter, seeing as much of Olivia in her gestures as of himself in her determination. I'm sure she is, he replied. You've become everything she dreamed of. Strong, talented, and above all, kind. Sometimes I feel like she's here with us, you know. Especially when we're cooking together. She is, in the way you season, in your passion for cooking, in your ability to forgive. Olivia lives in you, Emma. A year after Emma arrived at the restaurant, Richard made a decision that surprised everyone. During a meeting with the entire staff, he announced he was promoting Emma to sous chef, a position that usually took years to achieve. Some people are born to cook, he explained. Emma didn't just inherit this gift. She's nurtured it with love and dedication. She deserves this promotion. The whole team applauded, including Martha, who had become a motherly mentor to Emma. I remember when you walked in here with that worn-out backpack, said Martha, hugging the young woman. I knew you were special, but I never imagined how much. Emma, now 19 and much more confident, took on her new responsibilities seriously. She developed her own culinary style, blending the classic techniques she'd learned from Richard with the traditional recipes Olivia had taught her. The restaurant began receiving national recognition. Food critics praised the new generation of New York cuisine, represented by the father-daughter duo who had turned pain into culinary art. During an interview for a specialty magazine, Emma spoke about her journey. "When I first came here, I just wanted to meet my father," she said. "I never imagined I'd find an entire family, a passion, and a life purpose." "And what about you, Chef Richard?" asked the journalist. "How does it feel having your daughter as a professional partner?" "It's like a part of me that was lost 15 years ago has finally come home," Richard answered, emotional. Emma didn't just inherit Olivia's talent, she brought a fresh perspective that elevated our work. On the second anniversary of Emma's arrival, Richard organized a special celebration. He invited not just the restaurant staff, but everyone who had been important in their journey. Eleanor, some loyal customers, and even journalists who had followed their story. 2 years ago, Richard said, raising his glass for a toast, a brave young woman walked into our kitchen carrying more than just a backpack. She brought hope, talent, and above all, the chance for a family to reunite. Beside him, Emma held a photo of Olivia, now proudly displayed on the kitchen wall. "My mother always said love finds a way," she said, her voice trembling. "Sometimes it takes 15 years, sometimes it involves pain and tears, but in the end, love always finds a way." Michael and Tyler, who now worked harmoniously under Emma's supervision, also gave a speech. "We've learned that respect isn't earned by seniority, but by character," said Michael. "Emma taught us that in the humblest way possible." "And we were young and arrogant," Tyler added. "We thought we knew everything about cooking, but we knew nothing about humanity." The celebration lasted late into the night, filled with tears of joy and plans for the future. Richard and Emma had decided to write a cookbook together, telling the story behind each dish and how cooking had brought them together. "It'll be more than just a cookbook," Emma explained. "It'll be about second chances, about forgiveness, and how food can heal wounds that seem impossible to mend." 3 years later, the book Cooking Memories, a story of reunion, became a national bestseller. Richard and Emma's story inspired many estranged families to reconcile, and their restaurant became a symbol of hope and renewal. During a book signing in New York City, an elderly woman approached Emma with tears in her eyes. "My daughter," she said, "your story gave me the courage to reach out to my son after 20 years. Thank you for showing me it's never too late to start over." Emma hugged the woman, feeling the weight of responsibility her story carried. "True love withstands time and circumstance," she replied. "I hope you find peace in your reunion." That evening, back at the restaurant, Richard and Emma prepared dinner together for the last customers of the day. It had become their routine, working in harmonious silence, each anticipating the other's movements. "You know what moves me the most?" Richard asked, seasoning a sauce. "What?" Emma replied, chopping vegetables with the same precision that had impressed everyone years before. "Seeing that you didn't just inherit Olivia's gift, you've created your own style. You're not a copy of either of us. You're something entirely new and special." Emma smiled, feeling a warmth in her heart that no longer felt unfamiliar. "It's because I had the best teachers, a mother who taught me to love through food, and a father who taught me to turn that love into art." When the last customer left and they finished cleaning the kitchen, Richard grabbed his keys, ready to lock up. But before he did, he and Emma paused in the doorway, looking at the place that had become so much more than just a job. "Thank you," Emma said suddenly. "For what?" "For accepting me after all these years. For not blaming me for Mom's lie. For giving me a chance when I was just an inexperienced assistant." Richard hugged his daughter, grateful for the courage she'd had to seek him out. "Thank you for being brave enough to search for the truth, for enduring those humiliating early days, for forgiving those who hurt you." "Some pain is worth it when the result is finding family," Emma replied. As they walked home that night, father and daughter talked about future plans. Emma had expressed interest in studying in Italy to refine her skills, and Richard fully supported her. "When you come back, we could open another location," he suggested. "Something entirely yours with your own touch. And a few of Mom's recipes I haven't taught you yet." Emma smiled. "She left more recipes. So many. A whole notebook she made me promise not to open until I felt ready to honor her memory properly. And do you feel ready now? Emma stopped walking and looked at her father, seeing not just the respected chef everyone knew, but the man who had lost the woman he loved and the daughter he never knew he had, and still found the strength to begin again. Yes, she answered. Now I feel ready for anything. 5 years after the day Emma had nervously walked into the kitchen, carrying only a worn-out backpack and a secret, she returned from her studies in Italy with a specialist chef diploma and ambitious plans for the future. JFK Airport was busy that Tuesday morning, but Richard waited eagerly in the arrivals area. When he saw Emma appear, he barely recognized her. The insecure young woman had transformed into a confident one, standing tall with a radiant smile. "Dad!" she shouted, running to hug him. "My daughter," Richard whispered, holding her tight. "Look how you've grown." On the way home, Emma shared stories of her time in Italy, the chefs she'd met, the techniques she'd learned. "But you know what I learned most?" she said, gazing out the car window. "What?" "That home isn't a place. It's where the people we love are. And my home has always been here with you." When they arrived at Harrison and Daughter restaurant, the entire staff was waiting to welcome Emma. Martha, now grey-haired, but with the same motherly smile, was the first to embrace her. "Our girl has come back a true lady," she said, emotional. Michael and Tyler, who had become skilled chefs under Richard's guidance, also greeted her warmly. "Did you bring Italian recipes to teach us?" Michael teased. "I did," Emma smiled. "But I also brought something even more important." She opened her luggage and pulled out the notebook Hannah had left behind, the one she'd promised to open only when she felt ready. "It's time we fully understand Mom's story," she said, handing the notebook to Richard. Together, father and daughter opened the notebook for the first time. The yellowed pages held not just recipes, but unsent letters, photographs, and memories of Hannah. Each recipe came with a short story, explaining when and why it was created. "Look at this one," Emma said, pointing to a page. "Onion soup for hard days. I made this when Richard was sad after losing an important competition. The onions represent tears, but the melted cheese is the warmth that can heal any pain." Richard read silently, discovering sides of Hannah he'd never known. She had documented every important moment of their life together through food, creating a culinary autobiography of their shared journey. "She really loved us," he murmured, tracing the familiar handwriting. "And still does," Emma corrected. "True love doesn't end. It just changes." That night, using the recipes from Hannah's notebook, Richard and Emma prepared a special dinner for the restaurant staff. Each dish told a part of the story, and by the end of the meal, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. "I'd like to propose a toast," Martha said, raising her wine glass. "To Hannah, who taught us that true love always finds its way home." "To Hannah," everyone echoed. Emma looked around the table at the faces of the people who had become her family. Martha, who had embraced her like a mother. Michael and Tyler, who had gone from enemies to brothers. Richard, the father life had kept from her for so long, but fate had returned. "You know," she said, lifting her own glass, "when I was little and asked my mum about my dad, she always said that one day I'd understand some separations are necessary so stronger reunions can happen." "And do you understand now?" Richard asked. "I do. If she hadn't taken me away, I'd never have learned to value real family. If you two hadn't humiliated me at first," she said, glancing at Michael and Tyler, "I'd never have developed the strength to face bigger challenges. If we hadn't gone through all of this, our bond wouldn't be as strong as it is today." The next day, Emma presented her vision for the future. She wanted to turn part of the restaurant into a culinary school for underprivileged youth, teaching not just cooking techniques, but also values like teamwork, respect, and perseverance. "I want other young people like me who arrive with nothing but dreams to have an opportunity," she explained to Richard. "It's a wonderful idea," he replied. "Hannah would be proud." "We can use her recipes as the foundation for the course," Emma suggested. "Every dish taught will come with its story, showing how food can express emotions and connect people." The Olivia Thompson Culinary School opened 6 months later, attended by local officials, famous chefs, and most importantly, eager young students. On the first day of class, Emma introduced herself. "My name is Emma, and a few years ago I was exactly where you are now," she said. "No experience, scared, but with a deep desire to learn. I want you to know that here, more important than technical perfection, we value respect, dedication, and the ability to get back up after a fall." Among the first students was a 17-year-old named Jason, who reminded Emma so much of herself when she first arrived at the restaurant. Shy, poorly dressed, but with a special spark in his eyes. "Why do you want to learn to cook?" Emma asked on the first day. "Because my grandmother always said food made with love can heal any sadness," Jason replied, "and I want to learn how to make that kind of food." Emma smiled, recognizing in him the same passion that had driven Olivia to dedicate herself to cooking. "Then you've come to the right place," she said. "Here you'll learn that cooking is so much more than mixing ingredients. It's a way to express love." 2 years later, the school had already graduated 3 classes, and many alumni were working in respected restaurants across the city. Jason, who had stood out from the start, had become Emma's assistant at the school. "Professor Emma," he said one day, as they prepared a lesson on desserts, "I want to thank you for believing in me when I didn't even believe in myself." "You don't have to thank me," Emma replied. "Just pass that confidence on to other young people who come here afraid." "Like you did for me?" "Exactly. That's how we honor those who taught us, by teaching others." That evening, Emma and Richard were alone in the restaurant after closing, as they were every night. It was a sacred time for them when they could talk about the day and plan the future. "You've fulfilled the dream Olivia always had," Richard said, watching through the window as students said goodbye after night class. "How so?" "She always wanted cooking to be a bridge to bring people together, to give opportunities, to spread love. You haven't just honored her memory, you've carried her legacy to a new generation." Emma looked at Olivia's portrait, which now adorned both the restaurant and the school. "Sometimes I feel like she's here with us, approving of our choices," she said. "I'm sure she is, and I'm sure she's proud of the strong, generous woman you've become. A woman who learned from the best chef in New York," Emma smiled. "And who surpassed that chef in wisdom and compassion," Richard replied, embracing his daughter. On the school's 3rd anniversary, Emma organized a special celebration. She invited all the alumni, their families, the restaurant staff, and important members of the community. The event would be a cooking demonstration where each dish represented a lesson learned. "Good evening, everyone," Emma said, addressing the crowd. 6 years ago, I arrived at this restaurant carrying only a backpack and many doubts. Today, I see before me the faces of people who have become my chosen family." She pointed to Martha, who was in the front row. "Martha taught me that experience and wisdom must always come with kindness." Then she pointed to Michael and Tyler. "Michael and Tyler taught me that everyone deserves a second chance, even those who have hurt us." Finally, she looked at Richard. "And my father taught me that it's never too late to start over, that family isn't just blood, but a daily choice to love and forgive." The cooking demonstration was moving. Each dish prepared told a different story, and by the end, everyone present understood that this wasn't just a culinary school, but a place where lives were transformed. Jason, now 20 years old and a junior chef at the restaurant, had a surprise. He had secretly prepared a special dessert, a cake that blended Olivia's classic recipe with modern techniques he'd learned from Emma. "This dessert represents our culinary family," he explained. "The base is the tradition left by Mrs. Olivia, the filling is the knowledge shared by Chef Richard, and the topping is the innovation brought by Professor Emma." Emma tasted the cake, and her eyes filled with tears. It was exactly how she imagined Olivia would have wanted it, respectful of the past, but open to the future. "Jason," she said, "you haven't just learned to cook, you've learned to honor a history while creating your own." That night, after everyone had left, Emma, Richard, Martha, Michael, and Tyler stayed talking in the restaurant's kitchen. They were now 5 people who had become a family through unlikely circumstances, but held together by genuine love. "Who would have thought that scared girl would become one of the most respected chefs in the city?" Martha remarked, looking at Emma with maternal pride. "Who would have thought two arrogant cooks would learn humility from an assistant?" Michael added, laughing at himself. "Who would have thought a chef bitter from loss would find happiness again through his own daughter?" Richard said, moved. Emma looked at each of them, feeling deep gratitude for all the winding paths that had led them to this moment. "My mother always said God writes straight with crooked lines," she said. "Today I understand exactly what she meant." "What did she mean?" Tyler asked. "That sometimes we need to get lost to find our true path. That sometimes the worst experiences prepare us for the best. That true family is the one we choose to build every day, with patience and love." 5 years had passed since the school's opening. Emma had married an Italian chef she met during her studies, but he had moved to the United States to be close to her family. Together, they had expanded the school and the restaurant, creating a culinary complex that was a national reference. Richard, now with completely grey hair, had handed over the restaurant's management to Emma, but still worked every day as a consulting chef and instructor at the school. "I couldn't retire completely," he admitted to Emma one Saturday afternoon. "This place is my life." "And it will always be your home," Emma replied. "When my children grow up, I want them to learn from their grandfather just as I did. Your children will be lucky to grow up in a family that values tradition but isn't afraid to innovate." That afternoon, as they prepared the special Saturday dinner together, father and daughter worked in harmonious silence. Their hands moved in perfect sync, the result of years of working side by side. "Dad," Emma said suddenly. "Yes?" "Thank you for giving me the chance to know my full story, for helping me understand that my mother wasn't a coward. She was protecting me. For teaching me that forgiveness isn't about forgetting, but choosing love over resentment." Richard stopped what he was doing and looked at his daughter. In her, he saw Olivia in every delicate gesture, but also a strength of her own that had grown through the experiences they'd shared. "Thank you for having the courage to come find me, for enduring those early humiliations without giving up, for teaching me that family is a verb, not a noun, that father and daughter are made every day through small acts of love and understanding." That evening, the restaurant had a special visitor, Mrs. Eleanor, now 80, but still as lively as ever. She'd followed Emma's journey closely and made it a point to dine at the restaurant at least once a month. "My dear," she said, embracing Emma, "every time I come here, I'm moved by what you've built." "You were essential to this," Emma replied. "If you hadn't stood up for me that first day, I just saw a young woman being wronged. The rest was your doing, and your father's." Over dinner, Mrs. Eleanor shared stories about the restaurant's early years, when Richard was just a young chef trying to make his mark. He was talented, but his heart was broken, she recalled. After Olivia disappeared, he cooked with perfect technique but no soul. "He only found his passion again after you arrived, Emma." "Food reflects our emotions," Emma agreed. "My mother taught me that. That's why we always try to keep harmony in the kitchen. And you succeed. This place radiates peace and love. That's why the food here is special." At the end of the night, after Mrs. Eleanor left, Emma stayed alone in the kitchen for a few minutes, something she did occasionally, savoring the quiet to reflect on her journey. She looked at Olivia's portrait on the wall and whispered, "Thank you, Mom, for teaching me to love through food, for sacrificing your happiness to protect me, for giving me the strength to find my way home." Richard appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Talking to Olivia?" he asked softly. "I always talk to her before closing. I tell her about the day, what dishes we made, how many people we made happy." "And what does she say?" Emma smiled, touching the locket she still wore around her neck. "She says she's proud, that every tear, every moment apart was worth it, because it made us stronger and closer." She's right. We're stronger together than we ever were apart. Father and daughter left the restaurant together that night, as they had for years. Outside, they paused to look at the sign above the entrance. Harrison and Daughter Restaurant, established 2005, renewed by love in 2018. "You know what makes me proudest?" Richard asked. "What?" "Seeing that you didn't just inherit my talent or Olivia's. You created something entirely new. You took our stories, our recipes, our traditions, and built a legacy far beyond anything we could have imagined. Because I had the best teachers, Emma replied. A mother who taught me that true love sometimes requires sacrifice, and a father who taught me that true family is worth any weight. As they walked home, Emma thought of all the young people who'd passed through the culinary school, the families who gathered at the restaurant to celebrate special moments, the lives touched by the story of reunion she and Richard had lived. "Dad," she said, "I think I finally understand what Mom's real dream was." What was it? She didn't just want to be a great chef. She wanted to use cooking to connect people, to heal wounds, to create family where there was none, and we managed to make that dream come true. Michael smiled, feeling that Olivia, wherever she was at peace, knowing her daughter had found not just a father, but a purpose. "Yes," he agreed, "we did, and we'll keep doing it. One dish at a time, one story at a time, one family at a time." 10 years after the day Emma had nervously walked through the kitchen door, the culinary complex they had built was internationally recognized. Chefs from all over the world came not just to study cooking techniques, but above all the philosophy of using food as a tool for unity and healing. Emma, now a mother of 2 young children, had become one of the most respected chefs in the country. But for her, the greatest pride wasn't the awards or recognition. It was seeing Richard playing with their grandchildren in the kitchen, teaching them the same lessons Olivia had taught him years ago. "Grandpa," said little Hannah, 5 years old, touching the portrait of her great-grandmother. "Was Grandma in heaven just like Mommy?" "She was very much like her," Richard replied. The end. And what about you, dear listener? What did you think of this story of reunion and forgiveness? Have you ever experienced something similar in your family? Share your story in the comments and let us know if you think Emma made the right decisions. Your honest words mean so much to us. Don't forget to like this video and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartfelt stories like this one.